Okay, today I'm interviewing author, comedian Chris Champagne,
Where?
visiting me from New Orleans.
Oh, it's me.
That's you.
Okay.
So Chris, tell me about your writing process.
Well, I usually write by hand instead of typing because I cannot type very well, and I think certainly faster than I type. But so I do it by hand, and usually I write in public actually more than in private now. When I say in public, that means not at my house. Others I'll go sit. I mostly sit in a coffee house now, and I don't know if I've always kind of liked to have, I guess, I don't know, action going on around me when I write for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe because I don't know. I mean, I was always not a lonely, but I was always as a child, I was always kind of a loner, I guess I'd say, and I guess I got used to be by myself a lot, and maybe that being in a hubbub like that, I don't know, just kind of works for me. I'm not going to do it when I'm by myself too. I mean, sometimes I need to go to a different place where it's not quite as boisterous to, like a library or something like that, to do it. It depends on what I'm trying to compose, because I mean, usually I have an idea, and once I get going, I kind of like, tune everything out but what I'm doing. So once you get rolling, the hardest part is starting. Sometimes you have to make yourself start, even if you have nothing to say, because otherwise, well, if you don't get started, you'll never finish.
So, do you write every day?
Except for the 3rd of March. As well, in a sense, I'm always writing because I'm always thinking about it. I mean, even if I'm not thinking about it, I'm kind of like, it's kind of like running. If you run a lot, you can run further, or it's easier to run, easier to get started. But I always have it in my mind someplace, even if I'm not conscious of it, for an idea, things that strike me. Then I have to decide whether I want to write them down or not. And someone asked me, I had a show not long ago, and someone asked me specifically, do you get ideas like at night, and stuff? And do you have like a pad by your bed? And I don't have a pad by my bed because I'm an idiot. And because you often think of things when you're laying down at night. And then you have to decide if the light's out and you don't have a pencil with you in your pajamas, on whether or not you're going to get up and write it down. And you always tell yourself you'll remember, but you don't always remember everything. You remember most of it, but you don't really remember everything. So you have to go over your mind and say, is this idea good enough for me to wake up and to get up and go write it down? And it's better to write it down, because you don't necessarily think about it the same way, because sometimes you'll see what you've written down, you won't even know what that is, because you got to put it in context as well. Especially if you're a humor writer. I don't know if you're a other kind of writer, because I'm not another kind of writer, so I don't know. So
have you found that you have a writing ritual?
No, I do like to go different. Lately I pick my eye a lot. Lately I have a spot in the coffee house, the Fairgrounds Coffee House, where I go sit in the back in the chair. And that's about as close as I have to a ritual, except that I do have a technique that I use also, which I guess goes to the other question, where I use the way I write down sometimes. If I'm trying to like prime an idea, sometimes I'll have a process where I'll get on a blank sheet of paper and I'll put a 1 and a 0, and I'll write down the action, what's happening, or whatever the character's saying, and then I'll put a line around that part, and I'll go to number 2, 0, and do that. So I don't know if you call it a ritual or not. I guess it's not really a ritual, but it's just a technique that I use. So I guess it goes back to the formal question. So I'd say ritual, not really, not that I know of. I'll have to look out for that,
I know that you get a lot of your inspiration from watching the news and from reading news reports, but where do you get other inspiration for your work?
Well, the other is just daily stuff, but talking to people. I find that if I kind of have more conversations with people about things, it could be anything. It could be what's going on in the news, just could be what's going on in their life. That's good for priming ideas. Because people always, it's funny, everybody kind of looks at everything a different way. In other words, if you had 4 people looking at an incident, they would all kind of all describe it differently. I mean, hopefully there'd be some similarity into it, because without some kind of paradigm of reality, it would be things would be actually worse than they are. That's hard to believe, but people do have a different perspective just on physically watching things as opposed to just politically or socially or whatever. But that too. So you see things from a different perspective that might give you a different angle on on a subject. So I think that those two things, reading. I once had a friend who was a comedian, and he's a young comedian, and I suggested to him that the more that he read the news and kept up with what's going on in the world, the better off he would be. And he kind of poo-pooed that idea, and I was really kind of sad because that he did that. That he took to the idea like that because I was right. The more things the funnier you can be. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just a fact. I mean, I wish I would have paid more attention when I was in school, because I would know more, and then I would have more things to make fun of, if nothing else.
So, do you like writing or performing your pieces more?
Writing. I don't really particularly like the performing. I mean, if someone meets me at a party, they probably would think that I like to perform. And I guess I do. I like to be social, interactive, and I have a dramatic nature of the way I express myself, if I decide to express myself. But it's really nerve-wracking in some sense. I used to be scared to death to perform. I'm not scared to death anymore. I mean, I'm a little scared. You got to be a little scared, I guess, or you wouldn't have an edge, or you wouldn't do well, you wouldn't care. But I don't look forward to performing sometimes, because I never know how the crowd's going to be. Because I'm if I were like Louis C.K. or something, I knew that when I'm out there, there'd be 10,000 people. I'd be nervous about 10,000 people, but I wouldn't be worried about whether anybody's going to be there, because it's like performing for your own reflection in a mirror and one parakeet is not a lot of fun. So it kind of drags you down. That's true. Yeah, we need to be a very cool parakeet, because parakeets' personalities are not as good as even a debutante. Debutantes have much better personalities than parakeets. Now, it's true, you may run across a parakeet on a menu at a restaurant and never a debutante, unless they have restaurants in remote parts of Papua New Guinea, but I doubt seriously. But it's just that if you're going to perform at my level, in other words, if you have to worry about the venue, you got to worry about trying to get people to come, you got to worry about all those things, and it just sucks the fun out of it, actually. Now, sometimes when it starts and there are people there and you're in the middle of it, depending on what it is. I mean, there are some things that I enjoy doing more. There's a piece called The Dupe that I've been doing in my shows lately, and I kind of look forward to doing that, because it's a true story, but it's so ridiculous and asinine that and I think I have a good spin on it, so I do enjoy doing that. But other than that, I'd much prefer just writing. Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about your writing process. Describe your revision process.
Just reading it over and over again. I mean, I found that the first time I was on stage, when I was really still afraid to, be in front of people, I had to memorize a poem, which is about 2 pages long, I guess, single spaced. And I was amazed at how quickly I remembered it, could memorize it. Now, I have a pretty good memory, but it was really, really simple, actually. I mean, it's just a question. I mean, of course, then the question was, will I really remember it when I was nervous in front of people? But the point is that I had read it so many times, I didn't realize that I already kind of was memorizing it all those times. So just read it over and over again. That's all I think. And which, I mean, maybe that's about as simplistic as you can get as an answer to that question. But that's all I can say. I mean, and then the other thing is, if you read it out loud to people, that helps, because sometimes the flaws will jump out at you as you're sharing it with someone. Mm-hmm. Other than that, and I wouldn't suggest going on a bus and just reading it to everybody.
No.
No, I would read it to somebody who actually wants to hear it. If you could find someone like that. But I don't use that as a revision. I just do it by myself. Mm-hmm. But occasionally, if you're a poet, especially, you might go to a reading and you want to, an open mic, you might want to read a poem. And sometimes, if it's the first time you've read it and you didn't go over it a lot to revise it, sometimes the flaws in your language will jump out at you.
Speaking of, have you ever noticed any overused words or phrases, made a list for yourself of things that you check for or anything like that?
No, when I go back to look at things, I try to not use the same word twice, especially in a poem. Mm-hmm. Except for and and the, of course. But no, I never really have looked at No, I've never done that, and I probably should though. So I'm sure I like it. Well, although sometimes when I hear myself recorded, like on the radio show or something like that, or I do find myself using phrases over and over again, and maybe I can't tell you what they are. They're affectations of speech more than anything in my case, and when I hear them in myself, I don't like them. Because when I hear them in other people, I don't like them either. But I mean, it's not like it's not an indictment of them. It's just sometimes it depends on what they are. Like you know. Some people just not used to talking, and and on recordings, and they say stuff like that, and it's not a good sound, So I should do that. But there's a lot of things I should do, and I don't.
So what is your favorite thing about writing, being a writer?
Well, it allows me to express myself, obviously, and it allows me to use in my humorous look at, or whatever you want to call it, look at things, way I look at things. It allows me to use the talent I think that I have. If I have anything to offer, I think that's probably it. I mean, it's like I was saying, I had my father was a pro football player, an All-American football player, and he was a really great football player. But I'm not big like he was, and I wasn't. That's not my forte. So it allows me to use whatever I have and to express myself, and it's been good for me. It's made me brought me out of my shell. So that's, I guess, the best answer to that, I guess.
And
that is the case if of course that is in fact if I have any talent to use, but that's another story.
So what kind of projects do you have coming up?
Well, I'm continuing to do the shows, the live shows that I'm doing. I've had the radio shows every week. That keeps me having to churn out something new. And although I do some repeats sometimes to play things that I did in the past, but I'm always thinking about something. I'm thinking about maybe doing a show about our governor in Louisiana, Bobby Jindal. I did one with Philip and Lawson about Ray Nagin, 2 of them, and that was pretty popular. So it seems like if you do a show, political satire about a person that nobody likes, that usually is good. And I'm thinking about maybe making a film based on my shows. Since Katrina, I've done like over 10 one-man shows, new different ones, completely different shows that are over an hour or more. Some of them 75 to 80 minutes long. Mostly about New Orleans, Louisiana politics. And I was trying to maybe doing like a documentary, kind of, showcase some of those pieces and see where we've been politically in 10 years, because our 10-year anniversary is coming up. And I think that it was after Katrina said, when will New Orleans be back? Will it be 5 years? Will it be 10 years? Will it be 20? And I mean, I don't know if I can answer that question, but I mean, as we go forward, I think that the real question for me is how our political leadership is going to change, or if not, or revert to what it was. And actually, I'm not real hopeful about that. So and I think that's the main question about whether we go forward or not, depending on what you call by forward, I guess. So I'm thinking about doing that now. I mean, whether I'll do that or not, I don't know. And I'm thinking about maybe I'll talk to my publisher about doing another book of poetry. He said, "Before You Die," and he wants to do some of the comedy as well. So I like the idea of doing some of the comedy, like a compilation of the things that I've done over the years, short stories and sketches and stuff. But I don't want to mingle it with the poetry. I want to do just a poetry book and then do another book. So I want to do 2 books there. And I might have a revision of the Yat Dictionary, the 3rd edition of the Yat Dictionary, if I can find enough words to make it worth doing. And I've compiled a few, but not enough yet. So that might be some of the things I'll be doing next.
And do you have any tricks or tips that you want to share with other writers?
Wow. Well, just like I said before, you have to force yourself to start sometimes. Right. I know that you have a writers group. If you like that sort of thing, I would encourage people to do that, because it gives you comrades in arms, but it also helps you, gives you impetus to write something if you don't want to. And you never know. I mean, sometimes I've gotten like assignments, kind of like I've been asked to write things for different events sometimes, And so I've ended up writing things that I wouldn't have written probably otherwise. And sometimes it turns out really good. So, you know, do things like that if you have trouble thinking up ideas. But also, I mean, just do that because it's fun to be involved with somebody and some group of people, and you make friends. You know, I don't know. You know, I mean, just expose yourself to a lot of ideas. You know, read the paper. You know, look at, of course, now it's the internet. But I mean, of course, you have the internet. You look at papers every place and you see what's going on. You know, you never know when you might get an idea for something. You know, because there's always interesting things happening. You know, and horrible things too. But you know, but look for the interesting things. Unless you're a, you know, horror writer. Well, look for what you want. It's America. And if you're in Slovenia, look for what you want anyway, because it's Slovenia. And if you're in Mexico, well, look for anything you want.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Chris.
No, thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you with us here.
Well, it's been a pleasure to be here. And thank you for all your kindness.
Well, you're welcome.
And I appreciate it.
Now take the heat home with you.
Okay, well, I'll take this heat home with me.
Okay.
Because it's, you know, heat, you don't know what heat is. When I was little, I had 3 brothers. 2 of them caught
A
on.
little fuzzy thing came off.
2 of them caught on fire after we broke everything in the house.
Great. Thank you.